Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far to talk about movies and strong accents and medieval settings and fantasy. I don't know. We have a lot to talk about today. I'm very excited to talk to my guest today, which I so happen to have seen in person like 3 times now in the last week?
Oh my, 3 times in the last week. I have seen you more than I've seen my own family.
That's,
Tuong.
you know what, me too. Gisela Peters, everyone. Gisela, hello.
Hi, Tuong. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for being here. Like I said, like I've seen Gisela. Gisela and I work together, and I'm not going to disclose where you curious people out there. Nice trying to throw me under the bus like that. But we've seen each other 3 times, work related and not work related, all for fun. And I truly, what you just said, even though it was a joke, I've actually have seen you more than I've seen my family this year. It's crazy.
It's the oddest experience of the last year and a half, definitely.
But you and I used to see each other like literally every single day during the weekday.
Yeah.
And then we went to
right.
0. And now here we are kind of getting into like, I'm not even sure if it's normalcy or if it's just like so happens to be coincidence that like things are being planned that we get to see each other in person.
Part coincidence, part, I've been calling this Schrodinger's normal, where it's really a day by day, anything could happen.
Yeah,
So.
I like that. I like that. Gisela, it's been so long since you've been on the show. Last time we talked, I believe you picked a movie that I've already forgot the name of. And I was trying to think about it because I remember Nick Frost was in it and Simon Pegg was in it. What was it?
Slaughterhouse-5, actually. What was most memorable about it was that I remember being really disappointed.
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's what it was. And it had such a strong, it has like it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. You're like, how could you go wrong with this crew? And then we're like, well, you didn't really go wrong, but you also didn't really impress. So
yeah, nothing went right.
Yeah. I think that was like almost a year ago. So what have you kind of been up to since? How's life going? How are you feeling?
Well, life has been primarily existing within my condo. So obviously over the last year have not been really up to much.
Yeah.
I think the most exciting thing that has happened to me was camping. We've done an awful lot of camping, and I made some wild critter friends, which was a lot of fun. But beyond that, just hanging out at home, attempting to live life.
Yeah. I ended up talking to your husband last week, Matt Malcolm. If you guys haven't listened to the episode of Free Guy, I definitely recommend it. We had a lovely talk about that movie, but we talked a lot about camping and the idea of camping during the pandemic and how it's a nice little escape. And I know you love to camp. You love to do the real camping, not the glamping.
Well, I guess it depends on what you call by real camping.
Well, I would say anything that's not glamping is probably real camping.
Well, I do like to get out places where there is no light pollution and no neighbors. So,
right. Mm-hmm. But you like to also make critter friends as well.
Definitely. I was actually really excited on our last trip. I made decent friends with the little pine marten that was hanging out on our beach, which if you haven't seen them before or aren't familiar, they're small weasel-like mammals that live around in northern Ontario. And
weasel-like? I don't like the sound of that.
So cute. You'd be surprised. They look like little foxes.
Okay, and you've made friends with them. Now, all these friends that you've made over the years, camping, critters, and all this stuff, what are you trying to, what's your end game with this? Are you trying to slowly take over, or like in an emergency, you can blow a whistle and they all come to you like a Disney princess?
Well, it is on my bucket list. One day I would like to have my own murder of crows. But in all honesty, it really is. Sometimes they have so much to teach us, right? Animals have so much to teach us
Hmm.
with how they live and how they interact with each other and how they, I already said live, but I want to say live lightly on
Right.
land.
Uh-huh.
And I just like seeing how we critters solve problems and
Right.
then maybe how we can use that to solve our own problems in just like a, I want to say a better way.
What I'm trying to think, I just was thinking about maybe a book, which is really weird because I don't read books. But somebody was telling me, maybe it was you, Gisela, was telling me about a story of like how animals get, it's like a fictional story, gets sentience for a day or something like that. Or they're not sentience, but they're able to speak for a day or something like that and tell you how they exactly feel. Is this ringing a bell? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think there's a few books kind of along those themes. I know recently there was one called Seven Dogs. I forget who the author is, but kind of about seven dogs that gain sentience and just
Right.
kind of what happens next.
Right. So I'm just picturing these critters and what are they actually trying to tell you? Because obviously, spoilers, they don't speak English to you, Gisela. So you're observing. I mean, I don't know. I actually don't know. Maybe they do.
They do not.
Okay. But they're teaching
I don't
you
know.
through their actions, but not their words. Now, what if they had words? A, what would they sound like? B, what accent would they have? And C, what would they
Um,
say?
I think I'm just like imagining like a made up creature like Mothman coming down
Okay.
to me and just speaking in the voice of a field mouse, being like,
Oh, I always because I always picture Mothman like with giant abs or whatever because I feel like
oh yeah.
everybody has like idolized and sexualized Mothman now to
Well,
a
he's
point.
a completely, at this point, a total like LGBTQ plus
Yeah,
icon. And I believe there was actually a petition that was out,
yep. I know
a
exactly
petition
what you're
to
talking about.
replace, yeah, a petition to replace Confederate statues with statues of Mothman. And
Right.
I mean,
And
I
I
signed
think
that petition.
I'd sign it too. And I think like Mothman is only getting sexier as time goes on. Used to be this like, cryptid myth creature that people were scared of because it was a sign of a bad omen because deaths were around and all this other stuff. But in the last couple of years, it's like, you know what? He's that, but he's also an LGBTQ icon and he's hot. It's like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't know how we got from cryptids or so critters to cryptids, but I love it anyways. Gisela, what are the things right now that's also keeping you happy? Obviously, camping. You camp, I would say, a lot of the months of the year. I don't really know you as a winter camper. I'm sure you would do it though, but you're mostly sounds like a summer camper and stuff. But what are the other things that you do to keep you happy during this weird period that we're living in the pandemic?
Yeah, I definitely a summer camper. I do like shoulder season camping, so getting into the fall and early spring because that's when you can see moose and those kinds of fun things.
Mm-hmm. Meese?
But
Meese? No.
moose, meeses? Are we
Meese?
going with mooses?
Yeah.
Meese?
Right, right,
But I would absolutely camp in the winter. It's kind of a goal for once I feel like I've developed more experience,
right.
as like camping. But other than that, I've been
Same
reading.
old
Same
read.
old. Read so much. Lately, I've been getting into beading and leather crafting, which has been
Oh,
kind of fun.
let's not gloss
Uh,
over this. I know this is a thing that you're start. Maybe you were into it before, but you're certainly back into it now. Tell me about this like beading and leather crafting stuff you've been doing.
yeah. So, as a child growing up, I learned, my mom taught me quite a bit about embroidery, actually. That was a really traditional craft for her growing up. So, I did all of those like samplers, needle points, all of that kind of thing. Um, And separately, I think I learned in maybe like, like Girl Guides or Brownies or something like that. I learned some like basic beading stitches. So not too long ago, I was like, oh, why don't I relearn some of the embroidery stuff that I learned as a child and incorporate some of this sort of other elements. So I've just been having fun making earrings and things like that. So made some
I've
earrings for.
seen some of the stuff you've been making. You're playing it off cool, but they look good. They look good.
Well, there is a lot to learn with it, that's for sure. And I've been getting a lot of inspiration from some beaders I followed on Instagram who are
Cool.
just so detailed and just amazing
So is it
artworks.
something that well, I don't know anything about. I'm a very bad crafter unless it was an Animal Crossing, but is it one of those things where you can kind of have a YouTube tutorial in the background and one screen and then you're watching TV on another screen and do, or is it like a hyper focused, you got to really pay attention to what you're doing?
I think it depends on the point you are in your piece. I'd say it's a lot like crocheting or knitting, actually, where you've got some sections that are really repetitive motions where you can kind of do it without super close attention. But then there's other elements like the trickier bits where you really do have to be paying attention and being careful in
Right.
order to come out with a good piece. So
Is it
it
easy to
varies.
undo mistakes?
Uh, It depends. In
Hmm.
some cases, like if you've put an extra bead in, you can crush the bead and take it out that way. But I've certainly had cases where oh man, I had an earring last week, almost completely finished. It was a beautiful piece, took me a couple hours to do, a few hours to do. But at the very end, I was tying a bead in and accidentally cracked one of the beads in the
No,
center section. So I was so upset. I ended up having to redo the whole thing.
no way.
There probably would have been a way that I would have been able to salvage it, but I'm not that experienced yet.
Yet. Just wait
So
for
I
it.
ended up redoing it.
I'm waiting for your Etsy store. It's gonna happen. How much would
That's
you sell an earring?
depends on how long I made it for. But you know what? There is I'm gonna plug this for you super quick. There is a biannual Indigenous pop-up market. I'm just at Indigenous Pop-up Market on Instagram, and I purchased a few pieces this past July and some really nice, really beautifully made, well-crafted pieces.
Yeah.
And it was like between 50 and 75 bucks. And honestly, I probably would have paid more.
Wow. High praise. I think you've sent me some of these links before and I've checked them out. I yeah, that's awesome. I think that's such a cool hobby that I haven't heard anybody like really. I don't know anybody who's in the beading business or does casual beading on their spare time. So I just find it fascinating, or leather anything. So if you have one piece of advice that you give to somebody right now who wants to start out, what would it be?
Be patient with yourself.
Mm, I
It's
think
the
that's
hardest thing. It really is the hardest thing because I think a lot of time people will watch a tutorial or just see a piece and then not necessarily be cognizant of the amount of time and experience that goes into creating that. So I know for me, I was thinking, oh, I'd be able to whip up some like gorgeous, massive loom work piece in like no time. That is not the case.
yeah, I guess with any craft, you want to take your time because if you rush it, you'll mess it up, or you'll get to the finish line and you'll crack a bead and you got to start over.
Exactly. Just because I wasn't being careful. So,
You are so close. And then I do that constantly. I feel like there's a lot of things where I'm like, man, I am 98% done, whatever I'm doing, but I'm so close. I'm just going to rush the end. And then you fuck it all up. And it's a
yep.
whole thing. It's a whole thing. Not that I beat, not that I beat at all. One day, one day. Let's get into the news of the week, everyone. The news of the week. We're actually recording this on a Thursday. We usually record this on a Sunday when there's more news that has come out. So if someone comes at me and be like, well, what about this giant thing that happened on Friday? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It didn't happen yet. But here is the thing that did happen. The Navy stopped Tom Cruise from flying an actual jet in Top Gun Maverick. How do you feel about this?
You know what? I'm not against it because jets are multi-million dollar pieces of kit. And I don't know what kind of pilot licensing Tom Cruise has. I don't know if there's supposed to be like a co-pilot or something. But it's one thing to do a helo jump, but I think it's a whole other thing to fly a jet over potentially populated areas. I mean, gotta have a pro for that one, in my opinion.
Tom Cruise wants to do everything. Tom Cruise is so about
Tom Cruise.
He's just one of those people who he does so much for Mission Impossible, which is and obviously Top Gun and like whatever action movie he's in. And he's like, hey, I'm Tom Cruise. I want to go to space. I want to be in actual space to film this thing. And everyone's like, but Tom, we have we have the technology where you don't have to go to space. He's like, no, it has to happen. Fly me to space right now. And I feel like this is what this is. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I personally would love to go to space if there was a sign up, those one-way ticket to Mars. I would sign up for that. But that being said, Tom Cruise, get over yourself, please.
I don't know if I want a one-way ticket to Mars. Like what? I don't feel like it's. I would get a two-way ticket for sure, so I can see what it's about before committing my whole life to Mars. Because I really feel like they don't have that figured out over there.
No, they absolutely do not. I do not think we will. I would love to see that in our lifetime, but I'm not sure that it will happen.
Yeah, because I don't even know how big Mars is, to be honest. Like what do we talk? I always think about when I think of like planets that is not Earth, I could walk this is completely false. I am not a planet guy, but like a planet like Mars in my brain is like, I think Mars is pretty small. I could probably roam the entire planet in like, I don't know, a day. I don't know, but I don't think that's the case. No,
I really don't think that's the case.
No. Clearly, I learned nothing from Magic School Bus. Let's move on into the next news story, which is Bruce Willis stars in a new Russian commercial by deep fake. So I don't know what this headline is. I guess someone deep faked Bruce Willis in a Russian commercial.
Yeah, it's a little confusing how it's written. So did a deep faked Bruce Willis do a commercial, or did Bruce Willis himself do a commercial?
Good question. As we know in most Talking Tongue episodes, as our fans know, I don't bother to read the rest of the article, just the headlines for most of the. I'm going to assume that he did not mean to be in this Russian commercial and he got deep faked in, which seems like would be a lawsuit, I guess.
I feel like that would be a lawsuit. Although I'm not sure where one would bring that lawsuit in Russia.
Right. I don't know.
I'm not sure how well that'd go.
Is Bruce Willis the person that you want to be in your commercial? Especially a Russian commercial. I don't even know what that means, but like, why Bruce Willis? He's not even that. He's done, right? He's like,
he's still got a lot of cachet as like a big American movie star, right? So perhaps that, I don't know, like Hasselhoff in Germany. He's just a big star for like unknown reasons.
Still,
as far as I'm aware.
Okay, I guess it's just these old movie stars. They're just popular in other countries where I'm just like, Bruce Willis, like, what's the last good movie Bruce Willis has been in? Truly, what is it?
I am mentally cataloging Bruce Willis movies.
Yeah, I'm like,
and
I got nothing.
I feel like he's been in a lot of straight to streaming stuff lately.
Lots of Die Hard movies that are bad. Bad Die Hard movies.
Well, the last one was set in Russia, wasn't it? So maybe, I don't know. Some conspiratorial connection there.
There's the connection. Okay, my next one is that Twitch streamers organize boycott in protest at hate raids. Now, I did read something about this the other day, just very briefly. So this is not a surprise, but the people on the internet are mean to other people on the internet. A lot of racist stuff going on, lots of misogyny, lots of just terrible people trying to bully people with the veil and protection of anonymity on the internet, being like, hey, whatever you're streaming, I hate you. And they're saying all these things, and it gets to people. Obviously, it would totally get to me if that was the case. Luckily, Talking Tongue is not as popular as Twitch streamers, so I'm protected against these people. But it sounds like a lot of Twitch streamers are going on a day off Twitch in like a protest against these people, and good, I guess, right? Because like, fuck these people. Why are you so mean to other people on the internet?
Yeah, I've never understood griefing or just like deliberately trolling other people. I don't know, not my cuppa. That's fine. I I would seriously, maybe this is me being cynical, but I'm
Yeah,
not sure that taking a day off will really inspire trolls to stop trolling.
that is fair. I wonder, I don't know what it, hmm. I guess I don't know because I'm not a Twitch streamer and I haven't really given it much thought. I looked at this article and I thought it was interesting because I like to always have an opportunity to call out haters. And I think it's taking a day off. If Twitch is their platform of choice to watch their entertainment or whatever, and all their favorite streamers are down, then I guess one day off Twitch would be, I guess, damaging to the people who are like, where am I going to get my entertainment for the day? But I don't really know. I don't really know. Like, you might have to take a week off or something like that.
Something like that, because I mean, raids have been going on for as long as people have been congregating on the internet, right? So like
Yeah.
Have a Hotel back in the day and like the Something Awful forums, like, people are always
Right.
going to raid other forums, whether
Yeah,
we
so I
like them
want to
to
expand
or
on
not.
that. So the hate raids is that people are congregating together to be like, hey, today we're gonna go and attack this person. It's not just like separate people just being terrible because that happens on its own. It's just like, no, this is like a planned, this group of people, however many it is, I'm going to go to Gisela's channel and say some terrible things. And then once we're done saying terrible things to Gisela, I'm going to go over to Tuong's channel and say even worse. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just all that stuff. It's bad.
Mhm.
It's bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And nothing else to say about that except for don't be a dick. Let's move
Yeah,
on to the next news story, which is, have you seen the Cowboy Bebop images of John Cho yet?
I have. I have mixed feelings.
Oh, mixed feelings. Tell me, tell me.
Um, Only because I really like John Cho.
Mm-hmm.
I'm and I think he would be a fantastic Spike Spiegel. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's more some elements of the costuming and like the set design that I'm not fully on board yet.
Okay. I mean, there's only been a
But
couple images, but yes, I see
yeah,
what
only
you
a
mean.
couple of images. Um, I forget the actress's name who's cast as Faye,
Right.
Danielle Pineda. Great casting. I love that. I feel like Jet Black. Good. Ein. Good. We need to have a corgi. And yeah, John Cho. Good. But I feel like we gotta do something about his hair. I don't know.
It's hard
It's
to
not
adapt
quite.
anime to live action. We'll see what happens. There's very little success in that, but they always, it's like video games. They always try to be like, hey, this really popular thing that you liked, let's make it live action. And then it's mostly miss. But I'm just cross. I love John Cho. I want him to be so successful. He's like, he's 49 years old. And in these pictures, he's just fully ripped. You see abs and everything. And I'm like, yes, yes, John. So
Yeah, I want him to do really well in that. And I hope it's fantastic. Cowboy Bebop was one of my animes growing up that I loved. The manga as well, I quite enjoyed.
mhm, mhm.
So the only thing I hope is I just hope they don't screw it up, honestly.
Don't screw it up, people. They might, but let's hope they don't. My last news story is probably the biggest pop culture news story. I'm not sure how much you're interested in it, but there was a new Spider-Man trailer that dropped this week that blew up the entire internet. Now, Spider-Man is such a popular character in general. Like, he's my favorite superhero in many, many, many ways. I just love him and everybody loves him. And it just hit so many millions of views within like the first hour. So people are stoked about this. Did you watch it at all?
Yeah, I've caught what was the teaser trailer once or
Whatever that
twice,
means.
and I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I'm not the biggest Spider-Man
Hmm.
fan.
That's okay. What
It's
makes
more
you excited about it then?
because, well, I love Doctor Strange, and I am really excited for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness that's supposed to be coming out,
Hmm.
and anything that kind of fucks with the sense of reality in a film,
Yeah.
I love it. Give it to me.
Right.
So just I'm really intrigued by, it sounds like the concept of Peter Parker and Doctor Strange have they've fucked space time and now they
Hmm.
have to fix it. It feels like that's kind of what it's about.
Right.
And I'm really interested to see what kind of art direction that takes and what
I,
kind of like the cinematography of
oh
that.
yeah.
I want to see that movie. I think it'd be really visually really interesting and I can't wait.
I agree. I mean, like as a nerd and as someone who loves the Marvel stuff, there's a lot of things contributing to this whole idea of the multiverse. And it's really exciting to see it happen in Spider-Man and for Doctor Strange. And we know that maybe Wanda from WandaVision and the Scarlet Witch, like all of the most comic booky things imaginable are starting to happen on the big screen because the first large phase of Marvel movies with Thanos and all this other stuff. I'm geeking out over here, but like mostly it's like here's the introduction of superheroes from the beginning of Iron Man 1, where it's I was gonna say grounded, but you have a flying mech armor guy beating bad guys, but like they start small, beating smaller Earth villains. Then they go to space and then things get cosmic. And now things are getting like, where do you go from here? Bigger multiverse. Here is a character from Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And this is spoilers for people who didn't know, but you'd have to be living under a rock to have not seen any of this stuff. But there is large implications that we're going to be seeing characters like potentially Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in this movie and like crossovers galore. So I wonder, is it going to be too big? Are they going to collapse under their own ambition? Because Spider-Man 3 certainly was like that. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, where they introduced a bunch of villains and they did not know how to juggle that. And this seems to be this is the multiverse we're talking about. So I'm very intrigued is what I'm trying to say.
I think they can do it and I think that branching out into a multiverse is a fantastic way of kind of building and expanding on the MCU while keeping it fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
I hope that with multiverse we might see. We were just talking about live action adaptations. I wouldn't mind seeing a live action adaptation of Marvel's 1641. So
Ooh.
where they had a bunch of Marvel characters set in, I think it was like Jamestown or something like that, Virginia. So that kind of alt history, I would
Right.
love
Oh,
to
that'd be
see.
cool. They have to go weird now, like that's what I'm trying to say with they built like 23 movies in the infinite, let's call them the Infinity Stone saga. And where do you go? You have to just go big and weird and alternate timelines and whatever it is. So I'm excited. I know this is Tom Holland's last contractual obligation with the MCU in particular, and he's definitely owned by Sony, and that he might start playing within Sony's realm and Marvel's realm. But I honestly just hate Sony's Spider-Man universe that they're building. Like, sorry, I know it's very popular, but Venom is bad. Venom's a bad movie. I like Venom as a character, but it's a bad Tom Hardy. I love that guy, but Venom 2 looks terrible. I don't know.
I see when I said earlier that I wasn't a big Spider-Man fan, it's because of Sony. 'Cause I never read the Spider-Man comics growing up, so my first introduction to the character was Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and frankly, I just found it kind of flat, kind of
Mm,
boring.
fair.
I did not find his Spider-Man very compelling, so I didn't care what happened,
I
honestly.
love Spider-Man 2, though. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is just, mwah. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I get what you mean. Like, it's a different beast. But,
Hmm.
like, yeah, we have Venom. We have, like, Jared Leto as, like, Morbius. And, like, it's all these, like, niche Spider-Man-esque characters that aren't really crossing over. But Tom Holland's Spider-Man's supposed to be a link between. I don't know. It's messy. I just give it up, Sony. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be a better way of doing copyright and intellectual property and
Yeah.
all of that.
I read that, and this is from a tweet, so who knows how accurate this is, but it sounded believable, which is that that someone was like, well, why doesn't Disney buy up Sony? Which is crazy because Sony is a massive company. And for sure, Disney is a massive company, but Sony is a freaking massive company. And it's just one of those things where, if Disney ever bought Sony, that would be just terrible for everybody. Like, not everything should be owned by one company, first of all. But second of all, like Sony plays such a huge, it's like integral to the economy in Japan and like all over wherever Sony like headquarters is, right? So like there's just no way that would ever happen just to acquire Spider-Man.
I think it's possible, unlikely, but possible that Disney could try to buy Sony Pictures. So not even the whole,
Yeah.
sort of like not all of Sony, just Sony Pictures, or even just try to buy the Spider-Man IP. But
I think they tried it, and it's Spider-Man IP alone, because they know what they're sitting on, is like hundreds of millions of dollars just for that. Like they'd have to like lay down an arm and a leg just for Spider-Man. So think about that, and then think about, okay, let's just buy the entire company. That's insane. Like that's just too much money. It'd be billions of dollars.
it would probably actually be a really terrible thing. Honestly, that's an antitrust right there.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly. But hey, we're not here to talk about Spider-Man. We're here to talk about something entirely different today. Let's talk about, you know what? I'll let you introduce the movie of the week, Gisela.
oh, well, very well. Well, this week we enjoyed watching The Green Knight.
O greatest of kings, let one of your knights try to land a blow against me. Indulge me in this game.
I will meet thee.
Starring Dev Patel and Alicia Vikander. Who else was in it? Joel Edgerton was in it. Was directed by
David Lowery.
David Lowery.
Yep.
Who I don't actually seen. I think I've seen any other films with.
I was looking
but-
at his film history, and I also haven't seen any of his movies, but I have heard about a little movie called Pete's Dragon, which apparently he was the director for. So there you go. Yeah.
That must have been the remake, which I have not seen.
I have not seen, but I've heard very good things. So there you
Sounds positive. But yeah, so The Green Knight, it's the story of Sir Gawain, who is a knight in King Arthur's courts. And it's a trial, essentially. He goes on a quest.
Yeah.
So,
There's so much to talk about with this movie. And I was really excited to talk to you about this, Gisela, because this is like just all of this is just right up your alley. You just have so much brain knowledge in regards to this type of stuff. And I don't know anyone except for maybe your husband who would also know an equal amount of information in regards to this. But this story of the Green Knight, you were excited about this just by the trailer alone because you recognize this source material. I want you to build upon what is the Green Knight, the story, before we get into
So Green Knight, the story, it's a chivalric poem. We don't know who the author is. It was found with a couple of other pieces that were possibly written by the same person, but it's totally anonymous. So from the late 14th century, and basically it's the story of Sir Gawain, and I'll just kind of recount the tale I'll recount the poem story because it's a bit different from the movie.
Right.
So in the poem, and obviously I'll probably get some bits of this wrong, it's Christmas Eve, and Sir Gawain has arrived at King Arthur's court and is participating in the merriment when suddenly there's a knock upon the door and a huge green knight appears and basically issues a challenge saying, we want to play a friendly game. I will accept whatever blow is dealt upon me. And in exchange, a year from now on Christmastide, I will return the blow. And so obviously all the knights are kind of freaked out because the Green Knight, he's this like massive, imposing figure. Like in the poem, he is like all covered in green. He's carrying like a massive holly bow, which
What is that?
At the
A holly.
holly. So holly, like the plant, holly.
Right. Okay. And it's
Yeah.
like a bow.
So
Like a. Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like
All right.
a holly bow spelled a Bough.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would simply have been like a big ass stick, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Okay.
holly's a vine, so it would have been like a big ass holly stick vine.
Okay.
So holding that and holding a massive axe. So he's intended to be this like super scary person, like massive. Imagine like Groot or something, but a knight.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to go up against this guy because even though he says this is all a friendly game,
Hmm.
it's still
He's
who's
pretty
this,
freaking
like,
scary. Yeah. It's
he's
this
freaking
random
scary.
guy who interrupts the party just to say, "Hey, let's
Basically,
play this game." Yeah.
yeah, let's play this beheading game, basically, which
Yeah.
has its own sort of like whole stories about it. Anyways, the knights are all like, fuck no. But Gawain, he's like, okay, I will accept this challenge. Because I don't really have anything else going for me, so I might as well try to do something knightly.
Right.
So he accepts the challenge and like meets the knight and basically beheads the knight in like one clean blow. And they're just like, oh, because they think like the knight is dead. But no, the knight stands up and he goes and he picks up his head and basically just says, you know, great shot. I'll see you in a year kind of thing. And like picks up his head and goes. And everybody's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Year later, Sir Gawain's like, okay, I said I would do this thing. It's the honorable thing to do. I don't really want to, but I have to. So he departs on his quest and he encounters some ruffians and encounters some giants and has adventures. But towards the end of his quest, he encounters a castle and the lord and his lady, and he's accepted. Like he explains, like they invite him in, they're really hospitable. He basically, Sir Gawain's like, this is what's going on with me. I have to, like, I can't stay. I have to carry on to this green chapel because it's almost Christmas and I have to make my appointment. And the Lord, I'm going to say his name wrong, Beliac.
Sure. I didn't get the name either, but go ahead.
It's like Beltiac, something like that. I'm just gonna call him the Lord and the Lady.
Yeah, you do that. I didn't even know his name. Bob. His name's Bob.
Bob. But basically, so they invite him in. They're being super hospitable, and they ask him what he's on about. I already said this part. Sir Gawain's like, I have to meet my appointment. But the Lord's like, the Green Chapel's 2 miles away. It's 3 days till Christmas. You'll get there just fine. So why don't you hang out with us? And Sir Gawain accepts. So the Lord and Sir Gawain, kind of on that first day, they strike a deal, just kind of like a playful sort of deal. The Lord's like, okay, I'm going to go hunting, and whatever I get hunting, I'll give to you. In exchange, you're going to give me anything that you receive during the day. And it's supposed to be just like a fun game, or just kind of like a random thing, not unlike The Witcher, if you have ever seen that sort of bet.
Toss a coin.
Toss a coin. So day one, Lord goes out, goes hunting. Sir Gawain stays in. The Lord's lady has a crush on Sir Gawain and is trying to hit on him and is like being all like up in his face, basically. But he's a knight and wants to be really nice to the lady, and so accepts a kiss from her.
Yeah.
When the Lord gets home, I guess he'd caught like a deer or something. He gives it to Sir Gawain, and Gawain gives him a kiss. Doesn't say where it's from. It gives him a kiss. Okay. So day one. Day two, basically the same thing happens. Lord goes out hunting. The lady comes and is still just like, oh my God, I love you so much, Sir Gawain. Let's run away and be like, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's still like, no. Because he wants to do the right thing. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
But throughout this, she gives him 2 kisses. So, when the Lord gets home, same kind of thing. He gives Sir Gawain his hunt. Sir Gawain gives him 2 kisses. Okay. Day 3. basically the same thing happens, except this time, Sir Gawain, like the lady, she's like, really, like, I really love you. Like, I can't believe you're saying no to me. It's super rude that you're saying no to me. Like, I can't believe this. Like, oh my God. Like, and she wants to give him a ring, and it's like a gold ring. And he's like, but then finally she's like, okay, look, I've got this green belt, or like a girdle, they call it. And she's like, this belt, it is enchanted. It's going to protect you from anything that could possibly kill you. Like, I want you to take it as a love token. Please don't tell my husband. Like, and so during this time, she gives him 3 kisses, and he accepts the belt, and swears and like, accepts her promise. Like, she's requesting that he doesn't tell the Lord, and he accepts that. Like, he won't tell the Lord.
Right.
So, when the Lord gets home, he gives Sir Gawain his hunt, and Sir Gawain gives him 3 kisses, but doesn't mention the belt.
Okay. All right. Following so far. This is interesting. I'm finding this fascinating because I can start to see the departure of the movie in this.
Where it kind of splits. And then, so the next day it's Christmas. Sir Gawain, is feeling kind of bad about what he's done. So he actually goes to a priest and is like, I lied. I feel horrible. The priest is like, I'm going to absolve you. Like, okay. Like, before you meet your doom or whatever. Sure. Like, okay. So Sir Gawain like goes to see a priest, but then goes to the chapel and meets the Green Knight. And the Green Knight's like, are you ready for this, basically? And Sir Gawain's like, not really. So he like kneels, and the knight goes to swing, and Gawain flinches. He's like, ah. So he jumps, and the knight's like, are you even a knight? Like, do you even go here? like, what are you doing? That's not knightly behavior. And Sir Gawain's like, okay, fine, try again. So second time, he like just like holds, he's like prepared to get, Sir Gawain's like kneeling, preparing to get beheaded. The knight swings hard and deliberately misses. And Gawain's like, what the fuck? Like, you're just toying with me now. He's pretty mad. And so he says, like, if you're going to do it, just do it. And so he kneels again. The Green Knight swings hard, and just cuts him slightly on the neck. And that is it.
And that's it.
Well, that's not, sorry. That's not okay. It. So basically, it's kind of like a moment of like, what? And that's when the Green Knight reveals himself to be the Lord from the castle.
Okay.
Who had sent his wife to try to seduce Sir Gawain as a test of his purity, and so was fully aware of the entire situation and was aware of the belt. He says, though, any knight would, like, your dishonor, like, wasn't in, like, whatever. Like, you are the most blameless knight because you told me everything that you did, and the only thing you hid was something that you wanted to try to, like, save your own life with. Like, nobody would blame you, kind of thing. And so they depart as, like, they separate as friends. Sir Gawain goes back to the court and basically tells him what happens and is wearing this green belt. And then everybody there starts wearing a green belt as to kind of symbolize, just kind of like a reminder of his like small failure as a knight, and just kind of like a reminder of like being humble and not just like thinking so highly of yourself that you kind of place more value on your own sort of being than on others. So and then it just kind of like, that's the end of the poem, basically.
Whoa, this sounds like a very long poem, first of all.
Well, it's they're called, it's in 4 fits, actually. So FITT. So they're kind of like stanzas in poetry. All it means, though, is it's like a weird structure. It's like 100 lines, 101 lines, 20 lines, and something else. So yeah, it's probably about a 350, 400 line poem or something like that.
Wow. Does it rhyme? Is it a rhyming poem?
It does not. It is written in Middle English.
And you have it in front of you here. I'm seeing it. Is this the whole?
Yeah.
Wow. It seems like quite a number of pages.
Well, the copy I have, left over from Medieval Lit in University, it's Middle English on one side, like a modern translation on the other, so it's like double long.
I see. I see. It's so funny to me because when I asked Gisela to do this, she's like, I don't think I'll have anything very interesting to say. But the entire time you're talking, I'm like, wow, this is super cool. I don't know anybody. I literally know and don't know anybody who has read the poem, The Green Knight. So this is super interesting. And also just like hearing your version of it is different than what happens in the movie to a degree, right? So without getting into spoilers of the movie, because we will talk about the movie in just a bit, did you think that the movie honored the poem? And did you think that they did a great job adapting it to the big screen and the choices that they made?
It's kind of weird because I'm not sure what is or is not a spoiler for a 1,000-year-old poem.
Right, right.
But for the movie, I felt it was a very beautiful adaptation. Like, in terms of like the art direction and the cinematography, I loved how everything had a sort of like green or red tint. It was just kind of like that tinge. And it was just, yeah, it was beautifully shot. In terms of an adaptation, I liked it,
Yeah.
but
Here we go.
I don't know.
Here we go.
Can we talk about movie spoilers now?
We will
Yes?
get there. Maybe we'll get there.
Okay.
We haven't got
We'll
it
get
yet.
there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
I mostly thought it was a fantastic adaptation, and I feel like any fan of medieval lit or anybody who likes anything to do with like King Arthur or like medieval England, anything like that, should definitely see it.
Yeah, this movie was interesting because, first of all, Gisela and I got to see this at the same showing. We weren't sitting together, but we got to go to like a local theater, which I definitely recommend people go and support. Like those are the theaters that definitely need our help more than like your big AMC, Cineplex, giant corporation theaters. And it was so nice to be back in that setting where you're in a local theater and you know the people around you are just movie lovers. They're not casual movie lovers, they're movie lovers. And it was, I don't know if you got that feeling too, but it was just like, this is nice. I got a whole row to myself. No one's bugging me. And it's just, I'm having a great time. Did you have that type of experience too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think during the pandemic, the thing that I've missed the most is going to the cinema.
Yeah.
Because I used to go maybe every other week kind of thing. Maybe every week, really depending on what was out. So it's actually been a weird shift to not do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going to see a couple of movies in the last week or so has been just really fantastic.
Yeah. I was thinking because I've seen quite a number of movies now. This would be like my fourth movie in theaters, but this is my first at the local theater. I've been going to the Cineplexes, and with going to the Apollo in Kitchener, Ontario, was so much better. I don't know what it is. It's probably just because that it has that old school movie vibe, movie theater vibe, where the person working the counter is also helping selling tickets, doing the concessions. They're doing everything, and the popcorn's better. I don't know. Everything about the experience is just so much better in every way. And I was just like, oh man, I'm back at home. This feels really good. And I'll say in terms of my experience with this movie, I won't spoil anything yet. It's a really hard movie to completely articulate because there's a lot to it. And Gisela kind of went through the poem version, which most of those events happen in this version too, with a couple different things. But like my summary and review of this movie is that I had a really good time. I think it's a beautiful movie, like you said, great shots, and the things that happen in this movie, there's just so much. And I personally really did like the ending of the movie. It worked for me, but I don't know what the source. I've never read medieval poetry. That doesn't really appeal to me at all. I would say the things that are might not appeal to other people is this feels like a movie. And when I say that, it's accessible for a certain subset of people, which there's probably a lot of them out there, but it's not your mainstream movie like your Free Guy or whatever, where it's trying to just be a movie for everyone. This is a movie for a particular audience that likes high fantasy and medieval settings and very strong accents and lots of thous and these and arts and like a lot. And sometimes I'm just like, wait, what's happening? And like I would say, as someone who loves the medieval setting, I definitely at times got lost in the like, oh, I don't even think I'm confident I know what's happening in this movie right now, because there's a lot of strong imagery and they're trying to show you a lot of things too. And I'm like, well, what was the point of the sub arc here? Because I don't know how it all fits together. And it's like, well, it all fits together in the greater story of Sir Gawain. So not every arc is going to have like this perfect button on it. It's just like, these are the things that happened to him. And yeah, I would say there's times in the movies where I drifted focus because they have a lot of wide shots of like lingering shots of just like, hey, look at this giant, like wide shot of like Dev Patel riding a horse or like this greenery, and they linger on it for like 30 seconds and they slowly pan, and it almost rewards like a more patient viewer because it's not action all the time kind of thing. So it's like one of those things that you have to watch out for, I guess, if you're kind of curious about if you want to see the movie or not. Anyways, long rambling short is I did enjoy the movie. I did find that my attention drifted sometimes. I did find that I was lost at times too. And I was confused because medieval English is always sometimes hard to parse out what they're actually trying to say. But I really loved the film too. So like, I think it was awesome. I liked it. That's it.
Yeah, I think I read, I was subjected to the King James Bible a lot growing up. So the Days and Thous weren't too bad. But I definitely think it's a film that would reward close viewing or like multiple viewings, because there was a lot of imagery and symbolism in it. Like, in the film, King Arthur and Guinevere's crowns are all very like reminiscent of like what's it called? Like solar icons around saints, for example. And like on the back of Sir Gawain's shield, like the imagery was much more it reminded me a lot more of like a Russian Orthodox imagery versus a like medieval scene, which I thought was interesting.
Right. There's a lot of imagery in the movie with the sash that you're talking about, the girdle. There's a lot of things that you can probably extrapolate with this whole fox that's following Sir Gawain through a good chunk of the movie. And then when you start seeing, it's when they start going really hard on the fantasy, which I knew it was, but sometimes you're like, whoa, was not expecting a freaking naked giant in the background that looked like characters from Attack on Titan, or like a beheading of like a spirit ? Like it's just like a lot of things. And I'm like, whoa, what's happening right now?
It's kind of funny because medieval literature is wild. Like it has a lot of these fantasy elements. And I think for British and Celtic literature, more specifically, I think J.R.R. Tolkien wrote it best when he was basically describing as King Arthur as being Britain's version of a mythology or a legend. And so I think over time, a lot of that mythology has really kind of blossomed, I almost want to say, into a fantasy that's more recognizable to us today.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into the spoilers, and maybe this is part of the spoilers actually, so we'll just leave it at that I think we have like the general opinion of how we both feel, which is like we liked it. We liked it a lot, it sounds like. And then there's some pieces that were like, but mostly we liked it. Is there favorite moments in the movie for you, or things that stood out specifically before we get into like the differences?
I thought the opening monologue was very well done. And the opening scenes, for anybody that's seen The Witch, it felt very reminiscent of The Witch, and almost kind of spooky at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I really like the
Definitely.
design of the Green Knight himself.
Hmm.
He looked like an Ent from Lord of the Rings mixed with a White Walker from Game of Thrones, mixed with Groot, and yeah, it was great. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about the ending. I know you have your mixed feelings about it. For me, it worked, but again, it didn't really. I had nothing to compare it to, so I was just like, this is kind of cool. And then there's like some scenes with like just Dev Patel himself was so good in this role. And I love the choice to use him where it didn't
Hmm.
have to be this white knight or white character playing
Hmm.
or as a knight in King Arthur's court, right? Because
Yeah.
I think when
Well,
we
this
think of
is,
that, yeah,
I would say this casting is probably more historically accurate as well because, um, so like Britannium was a Roman province and Roman soldiers came from all over the Roman Empire. So there are records of like North African and Sub-Saharan African soldiers in Britain in like 19 like in 900 like up to like 1200 like all around that time, and then
right.
plus the Crusades as well. So there was a lot of traffic happening between like the Near East and Middle East and Western Europe. And then on top of that, you've got the Ottoman Empire. So, like in what, like 12th century, 13th century, 14th century. So you've got a lot of, they were called Moors. So, like a Muslim people. There were like Berbers and Iberians who were all like frequently very dark skinned. And so I would say that this casting is more like historically accurate than having a completely white cast because that's not how it was back then.
Right. I think a lot of North American movies put forth that it was all white people, and that's probably why it was in my brain. So I really like that context of like, no, it probably was a bunch of different colored people in medieval. Of
Hmm.
course it was. Of course it was.
Yeah.
Stupid Hollywood trying to tell me otherwise. Yeah. And I would say the other part that I really enjoyed in this movie is just it does go super weird sometimes, but when it gets into those weird kind of cerebral type of shots, like when Dev Patel's swimming in the water and like the lights are changing and you're like, whoa, this is trippy. Woo. You have this like a talking head, or like even like Alicia Vikander, where she's like very sexy, but she's eerie as well. Like she's creepy and she's talking weird. And she's like, it
Hmm.
is like a weird seduction technique that she's using, which is like, she's very obviously meant to seduce him because she's wearing a very revealing shirt, I guess, or like clothing, but she's also like saying some weird stuff that no regular person would say out of their mouth to him. But she's also trying to seduce him as well. And there's like a very kind of disturbing scene. Spoilers, or Yuri's talking about like he does end up having maybe sex with her. It's hard to say because they don't really show it, but he definitely comes and they're not afraid to show it. And it's like, you, that is gross. So, anyways, of course, the cum scene stands out in my mind.
Of course, so.
Of course, of course. Otherwise, yeah, yeah. Tell me your thoughts about I guess it's the ending that you really want to talk
Yeah,
about.
the ending. Because I felt it, I liked how in the beginning it presents Sir Gawain as kind of like just like a normal dude. Almost there's nothing particularly heroic or special about him.
Yeah, he's kind of
Like in the
like I was gonna say rapscallion in a way, but he's kind of like it
yeah,
seems like he's a little bit of a womanizer. He doesn't seem like that good of a person in terms of like,
he seems very
yeah, he's about
average.
himself, average and
Yeah,
about
like
himself.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
a self-centered individual. Yeah. One could
Yeah, you
say.
have like a lady who's clearly loves him, and
Hmm.
he has he doesn't even give her the time of day to say like, no, I'm good. Like he just kind of silently furrows
Hmm.
his brow
Yeah.
and wants the conversation to go away. Yeah,
Yeah, that unspoken class divide was very, very obvious.
right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, so I like that, but okay, so in the ending, and I guess I'll just like spoil the ending
Yeah,
if
sure.
that's all
Yeah,
right.
do it.
So in the film, um, the interactions between Sir Gawain and the lady are much more explicit, and shorter. And in the film, Sir Gawain doesn't return all of the kisses in the same way that he does in the poem. So in the poem, he like quote unquote behaves more with more honor, but he also like he actually is more active in upholding his end of the bargain. Whereas in the film, the one kiss is taken from him. It wasn't given.
Yeah,
And
I know what
so,
you mean, because like I was like there is a kiss between Joel Edgerton's character and Dev Patel, but I didn't really know without the context that you just gave me. Like I kind of forgot about the deal that they made, right? Because like it sounds like in the poem it's much more conscious. They make a point to be like he's
yeah,
returning the kisses that he was given. In this one, I'm like, oh, is Joel Edgerton's character bisexual? Is that just what he is? Like I don't know. But this makes way more sense.
yeah. So in the poem, he had way more agency in what he was doing, and he more explicitly agrees to these games. Whereas in the movie, he didn't explicitly agree to the exchange of winnings with the Lord, for example. He went further with the lady than he did in the poem. Although in the poem, it does kind of allude to no more pleasure to be had from him. So
Oh, maybe
I
that
don't
means
know.
he
Maybe
also
could be
came.
could be a hint at that.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what kind of made the big difference for me. How in the film it was more these things were happening to him and he was reacting to it, whereas in the poem he was a more like active participant in it. And in the film, so he has these experiences with the Lord and Lady. He leaves to go to the chapel. The Lord takes the kiss from him, and then in the film, he goes to the chapel. He basically like has that same sort of flinch scenario, but in the film he has a flash forward where in this flash forward he runs away from the knight, finds the horse there, runs back to his castle. I guess somehow manages to win succession from King Arthur and like becomes a king. And it looks like he engages in battle, probably against Moors at that time. Has like a illegitimate son who dies, and like meanwhile this whole time he's wearing this girdle. It turns out it seems like kind of a miserable life. Cut to that was just a flash forward, didn't actually happen. And the film basically ends with Dev Patel kneeling and the knight being like, off with your head or whatever, as if the knight's about to behead him. And the film doesn't tell us about who the Green Knight actually was, and doesn't tell us about how like the knight, like the Lord was aware of the whole situation, like and everything that was happening. So I felt that the movie almost like cut off the end in a way, just because those like those plots they didn't feel fully finished in the film. So that's why I wasn't sure about the flash forward. Part of me is like, couldn't you have taken that time and just like finished the poem maybe?
Because they went for like a really go for broke type of thing at the end where it's really like it feels like 15 to 20 minutes of this. They just every character almost stops talking, especially Dev Patel. Like there's just like music going in the background, and you see fast and slow this alt reality, which you don't know at the time, play out. Where Dev Patel's character, he becomes king. He pays money to not be with the lower class lady that he's been with the entire movie, and then he goes to war, and then at the end of this flash forward he gets his head chopped off anyways, like almost through like this mystical force. And then you go to what you're talking about where they say that, oh no, that actually maybe probably didn't happen, because we go back to the scene where Dev Patel's ready to get his head chopped off. And then the Green Knight takes his finger and runs it across Dev Patel's neck and does draw blood, but that's it. And then he kind of like smiles and says, off with your head.
And we did forget to mention that at the end of the flash forward, like when we're backed into like the regular film's timeline, Sir Gawain does actually take off his belt and like discard it, and then says he's ready for the Green Knight to behead him. So there is that, but
which doesn't happen in the book. Or
no, that doesn't happen in the poem.
Yeah,
because in the poem, he like doesn't admit to having the belt to the knight until after, basically. Yeah.
So in the film, it's like alluding to like this, he doesn't want to be protected and live, because if he, for me, I extrapolated that if he kept the belt on, everything that he saw would play out, and he's protected, but he's extremely unhappy throughout the flash forward or whatever. Dev Patel is just mean mugging for the rest of the film. So it's just like, you know what? Screw it. I don't want to be protected by this green girdle. Toss it away, and you can just chop off my head, which he doesn't end up doing at the end. So it is interesting because they do set up in the movie, or at least from my memory, they say the Green Knight might be someone you know. And I think they say that in the film, but they never show you in the film. I had no idea it would have been the Lord, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, they kind of allude to Sir Gawain's mother sending him. And I guess just for more context, in the film, we do see that while it's the initial Christmas feast, King Arthur is speaking, we do see Sir Gawain's mum, who is, in the film, they describe her as Arthur's sister. She's his stepsister, Morgan Le Fay, whom you may...
completely missed that part of the movie.
Yeah, so I don't think they name her in the movie. They don't name her in the movie. But Morgan Le Fay is his stepsister, Arthur's stepsister, who Sir Gawain's mum in this case. So she sends the Green Knight to this initial feast, and that's in the poem too. So she sends the knight, and the whole point of doing that anyways was honestly, it was supposed to be a prank. Like Morgana Le Fay was trying to like maliciously prank King Arthur and Guinevere, and the idea being to like scare Queen Guinevere to death, which didn't work. But it was like that was a prank, kind of. Like a mean-spirited.
Sure, yeah.
But that's effectively what it was, though. So initially in the film, I thought that they were alluding to how, I guess, his own mother sent the Green Knight. But I don't know. They may have been talking about how the Green Knight was the Lord he was about to meet.
That's why your recommendation of like maybe seeing this movie a couple times to understand it definitely stands, because it's definitely, I mean, I feel like a lot of A24 films are like this, which is just very big art house films where you have to pay attention, and if you watch it another time you'll be like, oh, these are the pieces that I missed. So there's definitely benefit to watching it multiple times, even though a lot of people don't watch movies over and over and over again. But this one seems like one that you probably would want to if you're curious about it, because there's so many things you can miss, I find. Yeah.
Yep. There was a lot of small tidbits in there. One of my favorites, I'll just say quickly, was in the film, King Arthur is wearing a pentacle throughout the film. And you see the same pentacle repeated in like the floor of their large hall. We see, I think Sir Gawain has it on his shield later on. Just kind of random. So this poem is the first time that the symbol or the word was ever used in English language. So this is like original to this work. So like the five-sided star, and it's supposed to represent the like 5 virtues of knightliness. So they say that in the movie, just like, I forget them all, like honor and chivalry and truth, all these things.
Badassery, I get it. All of the knights.
Yeah, all that knightly stuff. So kind of like using those same symbols all throughout, like how it's all peppered throughout. I find that, I want to see it again now. See what else I missed.
Yeah. Yeah, lots to say about this. But any final thoughts you have about the Green Knight before we wrap things up?
Um, yeah, you know what? I am absolutely thrilled to see a live action remake of a medieval piece of fiction that doesn't suck. Because I don't know if anybody saw Beowulf, but that was terrible. Don't watch it. It was
Mm-mm.
so bad. So I'm really glad to see that, and especially done in a kind of like really thoughtful way. So
Yeah, they
yeah.
definitely made choices in this film, and this is not one of those because fantasy, like a lot of genres, it's you can't put it in one box because I think I got the question of like, if I like Lord of the Rings, will I like this? And the answer is not necessarily because it's not that. Like it's
Mhm.
different. It's way different. Yes, it's fantasy. Yes, there's creatures, but it moves at a much slower pace. And there's things that are happening that they don't necessarily tell you what's happening. And it's really up to the viewer to interpret a lot of things that happen. And I think like those are the parts where like it's been a while where I had to kind of work in my mind. Oh, okay, so this happened because of that. And what does this mean? It's and in Lord of the Rings, it's very obvious what's happening in the movie, right? So, like, those are completely different stuff. So, if you're in the mood for a medieval fantasy setting that takes its time and there's a lot of imagery and that kind of stuff, then you will be rewarded by watching The Green Knight. But don't expect like this big fantasy action set piece, swords and dragons. It's not that type of movie.
Mhm. That's absolutely right. I feel like with stories like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, 'cause remember they're thousands, like it's 1,000 years old. So works and authors like J.R. Tolkien and like more modern fantasy, they all build on these kinds of initial settings. So I think it's kind of reasonable to assume that medieval will be kind of slow. But then,
Yeah. I think
as like
medieval
as
in 2021, I think a lot of people just assume it's like, I don't know, much faster paced and like,
yeah.
I don't know, jousting and the princess's hand, like, like whatever
Mhm.
modern medieval times is now. This is not that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, all that stuff happens. It just happens over many, 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 many pages of text.
Fair. Yes. Okay. My last question to you is uh, when I was thinking about, because again, as someone who's never read The Green Knight, and when The Green Knight presented the deal, to me, I'm like, that's the deal. This fucking sucks. Why would anybody take this deal? And once again, the deal is you can deal any blow to me, but I'll do the same blow to you in a year from now. And I'm like, that sounds so stressful. Like, why would anyone agree to this? Gisela, would you agree to this?
If a magical green knight. Okay, yes, I would. But I would not attempt to bat a green knight. I would probably just be like, excuse me, may I shake your hand or something instead?
Yeah, well, Dev Patel's character had a lot going for him because he's trying to prove something. He's like, I
Yeah.
really, and like King Arthur and everyone's just like, hey, you're special. You're really special. Don't worry, you're going to be great. I think he had a lot of pressure to cut off a head, but like that's a bit much. I don't want
Yeah,
that
I
happening to me.
went a bit far with that one.
Also, is there a
But
consequence if you don't complete the game, or is it just dishonorable?
dishonorable. It's like, and it's weird too because the beheading game, like, it's not unique to Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Like, it happens elsewhere in medieval lit, and I don't know. It's just one of those weird things. Medieval history is just fucked, honestly.
I guess I would be okay with being dishonorable, I suppose. Like he becomes a hero in a lot of cases, and there's like puppet plays in the movie with him, and people are like, you're Sir Gawain, you're the guy who beheaded the Green Knight guy, whatever, whatever. I would just be like, sweet, take my popularity for a year and just live the rest of my life being like, no, I don't want to freaking go. And first of all, I have to make a journey to this guy. He's not going to come back to me and he beheads me. I have to go to him. I have to go through all of this shit and then get beheaded. It sounds like a bad deal.
So I'm not sure I'd agree to that one. No.
No. All right, Gisela, what would you rate The Green Knight on your own scale?
Ooh, I would rate it probably Let's, you know what? I did really enjoy it. It was just a little bit at the end that I was kind of like meh about. Let's go with an 8.7 out of 11 Dev Patels.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I was first going to make mine gross. Like, how many scenes of cum would this movie be out of? But you know what? I said it out loud. I already hate the scale. So let's go with, I'm going to go with a solid 8 out of 8. No, 8 out of 8.9. Alicia Vikander is trying to seduce me.
That's acceptable.
Or 9 out of 11 trying to return Joel Edgerton's kiss to him. And then, because let's just keep this going, 10 out of 12 naked giants looking at me, and I'm unfazed by the giants, but I am totally okay with a talking headless spirit.
Somehow that works.
Okay. A lot of arbitrary scales, but I love it. Gisela, thank you so much for joining me here today on our episode of The Green Knight. So happy to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for letting me geek out a little bit here.
You know, you're one of those people that has an encyclopedic knowledge of like very specific things that people don't know about. There has to be a platform for you to share this with the world, and here we are. I'm happy you did it.
Thank you.
I always wanted to do the Green Knight as part of Talking Tongue. I could have grabbed anybody, but I can assure you none of them have read the poem. So I'm happy that you provided the context today. Yeah. Do you have anything to plug for the people at home?
Only thing I have to plug, if you live along the Haldimand Tract, aka Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph region of Ontario, there's going to be an Indigenous market at the Huron Natural Area, September 4th, 9 to 5, whole day kind of thing. Looks like it's going to be pretty busy and pretty fun, so check it out.
That sounds cool. All right. Send me that information after this episode, because I'm going to put that in my calendar. That sounds rad. Okay, for myself, you can find the rest of the shows in the Pod Cavern at www.podcavern.com. Check out all of the shows there. We'll be back again for another episode of Talking Tongue. But before we go, Gisela has her world famous catchphrase, and it goes like this.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.